Welcome to Game Soup. It's a game design podcast where we throw ideas in a pot and see what's cooking. I'm Chloe Montgomery, and I'm joined by your favourite Dragonbane's favourite Dragonbane,
Kayla Dice. It's sort of vogue as I did that. I have a camera on purely so I have someone to make eye contact with. Well, not eye contact, I'm not a pervert, but like something to look at so I don't get distracted by other distractions on my laptop. Yeah, I was voguing while I did that. It's Kayla Dice. It's Chloe Montgomery. This episode is out a little early, and we're on our way, or we're actually already at Tabletop Scotland, having done our setup last night. And if you come down to stall G317, you can see me, you can see Chloe, Alyssa will be there, Laurie O'Connor will be there. We're going to be selling loads of cool games.
It's incredible to me that you know in advance what table you're at. I just kind of get told most of the time, like in a group chat, where are we? We're at G317. It's like, okay, where's that?
It's on the map. I sent you the map, by the way.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll make a little flyer or something for Twitter that is like, here's where we are, and then forget immediately. Like, there's been days at the con at cons where I've had to look at my Twitter name to be like, what table am I at?
I guess I remember because I had to make a flyer, so...
Yeah.
We talked about the fact that I did Norwich Games Con. Yeah, when we did that, me and Laurie did that, along with Kristen Yanan, and we had a flyer we were handing out where it's like, oh, if you bring this to the stall, you get 10% off a game, which worked really well. And so I made a flyer, a version of that for Tabletop Scotland, so I had to look up our thing. Also, I'll be honest, I vaguely remember it because G317 sounds a bit like G13, which was the name of a character in the latest.
The latest what?
Dimension 20.
Ah, that's the thing with Brendan doesn't know how to play Tournament Arc Mulligan, right?
I've heard you're very bitter over...
Oh no, I don't care. He got me lots of sales.
It's all you can hope for.
Can we talk about how lots of game people have very game names? Like, obviously, Kayla Dice, you chose that name. But Brendan Lee Mulligan, that's a thing you do with cards. J Dragon, give me a break. If that is your real name.
Those are both shoots, yeah. But I feel like Brendan Lee Mulligan, like, yes, that's a thing you do in games, but not really in TTRPGs kind of ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, J Dragon. I'm trying to think, does anyone else have a very sort of on-brand name that
Don't
is
get me started about
Howitts.
What's a Howitt? Let's invent the fantasy thing that a Howitt is. I think it's like the back door into a dragon's pit or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I would guess of like Howitt. It's sort of got some kind of door, some kind of alcove.
Oh, how it could be like a monster. It's like a classical British monster. It's like a brownie or a pixie or a Howit, you know?
Yeah. A Hob Howit or something. That makes sense. Do we just keep picking names out of a hat? We look at the attendee list for Tabletop Scotland and go fucking wild.
Let's do it. It's the Tabletop Scotland special.
I thought you wanted to finish off that tour guide game.
Oh, we'll get to it eventually. Right.
Let's just do... before we go to Tabletop Scotland, we're going to release a podcast where we riff on the names of all our colleagues and contemporaries.
Yeah. So, Blackwell. Anna Blackwell, of course. I think sounds like a town.
If you're...
Oh...
Yeah, I mean, it is the name of multiple towns. I guess if you were making this some kind of fantasy artifact, I'd be like, oh, it's the Black Well.
Yeah.
Which is a well where it features this sort of ichor instead of water. And, I don't know, it fucking venom symbiotes you, or whatever.
Yeah, and there's a classic 80s adventure called The Black Well, where TSR invites you to defeat this good mayor who has been taken over by the Ichor of the Black Well. Ichor of the Black Well does sound like an 80s adventure.
Yeah, definitely. I think we do need to start, like, turning the gun on ourselves a bit, though. What is a Montgomery?
It's a town in Alabama where...
You can't just keep saying, these places are towns. Like, oh wow, people's last names could also be the names of towns? That's not a groundbreaking reveal.
I was going to give you a history lesson there, but okay, never mind.
Sorry.
Don't get fucked.
Oh!
A Montgomery. I think it's 2 words. It's a Gomery that Mont, or something like that, you know? It's a Montgomery.
What's a Gomery, then? I think it's like a gummy worm that is giant. But not like dune-sized giant worm.
Yeah.
I'm thinking like 7 snakes duct taped together giant worm.
It's really long, but it's not, like, bigger.
I think it's like bigger than an arm.
Oh, okay.
I'm imagining like bigger than an arm. So a Gomery is that, and a Montgomery. I guess that's like the like a boss one. Like if you kill the Montgomery, all of the other Gomerys in the area like stops working because they're actually a hive mind.
They're a hive mind,
and the
yeah.
Montgomery is the main body.
Oh, and because they're worms, it's like all of the Gomerys split off from the Montgomery. It's like when you cut into one, it splits off and it becomes 2 things. And whichever's the biggest stays the Mont. So it's like they're...
I read a really sad Tumblr post recently about how someone as a kid, was told the whole thing of, oh, you cut up worms, it makes 2 worms. And how that is not true.
Yeah.
And how because they loved worms, they cut up a bunch of worms and buried them expecting more worms. And then were traumatized as they opened the burial plot like the next day and were like, oh no, I've just killed loads of this animal I love.
Oh my god.
It really broke my heart, man.
So that's where Montgomery has come from. Some kid did that and it created the first Gomery.
The first Gomery.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to do with dice. That's already a game thing, so...
It's already a game thing, and not in as many of my games as you'd expect.
Yeah, you should get on that, I think.
I mean, I've got games with dice. I've got, like, they exist, but it's really not, like, the dominant, mot de plat.
That's what I'm saying, though. You should get a thing where that is the dominant... What did you say? Mot de plat?
Yeah, I'm going to level with you. That sounds. I don't think that's a word in any kind of language or meaning. I mean, like it's the main way you resolve shit in Terminal. I'm actually not trying to think of other games of mine where dice are the main thing. Dice and cards, I would say, share equal focus in Fear the Taste of Blood, and that is how Godslingers works. But I've never printed a less big game.
I'm looking down this list, and I don't know that many people on this list. Can you give me a pick? Give me a pick.
What, of someone's
Yeah, some
name?
tabletop person.
I guess, like...
What's the names of the people from MacGuffin
Press.
and Co?
Johnny Sims, and I think it's Sasha. Sienna is Sasha's last name?
Yeah.
I do feel the issue with this, while, like, there are, like, a lot with, like, weird fake names... is the fact that, like, names do come from places. They're not really, like, random collections of sounds. So, like, we're both having to come up with what this could be, but also we're having to ignore anything we know about the what. Like, it can't be like, oh, what would a baker be?
Go on, what's a baker? Give me a monster that is a bit called a baker.
But is not...
It's nothing to do with bread.
Nothing to do with bread. It's, I guess, a case of, like, are we reverse engineering what would bake be? That can't be about cooking or fire. So,
I think this is where... This creature is where we got the word baker from, in this fantasy world. And...
Okay, so it is all about fire, but it doesn't make stuff, it's just like...
I think it's like some sort of... I don't know if it's an enchantment or a monster that slowly warms up the room that you're in until it bakes you alive. And then people were like, "Oh, actually, this is really good for cooking things. Let's get a baker in our ovens." And then that spread to be the people who made bread.
I do like this fun idea of a world where, that is a fun thing I like doing. I did it a lot actually in like world building stuff for any old gods or young guns things, where it was like, oh, how would the fact that like this is a sort of like starfaring people like affect names? So a lot of names start to have like ship in, or sol or sun or stuff, because it's like, oh yeah, I mean this is a name that kind of implies someone was, I guess, born on a spaceship.
Yeah. It's like if you ever say G's in a tabletop game, then Jesus becomes canon.
Oh, I mean, or I love that is an entirely different person who is being referenced by G's. Yeah. I remember, I think I might have brought this up on a podcast before, that when I was playing a game that was not set in Earth, but I was playing a bard character, I was suddenly like, if I want to come up with like poetic sounding stuff that's cool and evocative, I can just use Shakespeare quotes and just say, in this universe, I was the first person to say
I feel
that.
like you've done
all the world's a stage.
Before,
I came up with that. Yeah, it reminded me of it in that same way of like, you just establish anything and go like, I
did that. Pride and Prejudice. Yeah, I did that, mate.
Invented it, mate. Do you want to go back to the tour guides?
Yes, last week we were talking about tour guides. You had a good idea for tour guide games, and then we cut it off early because you had a funny joke.
That's the Game Soup way. It's the Game Soup promise.
I don't know about that.
Well, the idea we had so far was like, it was a roll and write, and because we were talking about, you can like kind of like sabotage or banter or bully other people as you are on the same spaces of them. We realized like, we've invented a board game, and I was trying to push it into like, well, maybe to actually be an RPG, we make it GM'd, and the GM is controlling like all of the other things, and you are like on, I guess, a tour bus together.
Yeah.
And maybe you have different roles there. Like, in that case, maybe it's a thing of like, okay, yeah, one of you's the bus driver, you roll for movement, and... Or maybe any of you could drive, but, like, whoever is the driver of the bus in this scenario, like, has better things that control their movement. Like, oh yeah, they can roll their, like, D whatever, and then they also can knock it down or up by 2. Like, they have this, like, 2-point range where they can... Whereas if anyone else has to drive the bus because there's an emergency, it's like, nah, take what you fucking get. Or maybe you have lower dice because it's like, yeah, you only have a D4, you have not actually passed your license. Whereas someone gets, like, rolling for laying traps or whatever.
Yeah.
Is this just, like, a slice of life game? Is it a tour guide in a real, but not maybe that real, like, city or town or whatever? Or are you fantasy tour guides?
I feel like there could be a thing here where it's like, say, there's so many Edinburgh ghost walks. Say we set this in Edinburgh, we get a little map of Edinburgh, or like, we like fake up a map of Edinburgh and there's the castle and there's the moor or whatever. And then you could like put like, so here's the site of whatever killing, or this is where the spookity monster lives. And if you look in that window there, whatever. And then if it's successful, then we can do the London edition, the York edition, where there's Vikings in York, and there's Jack the Ripper in London, and the Oregon edition, where there's chupacabras and shit. I don't know. Bigfoots.
I don't really know what chupacabras are, but yeah.
I think they're Mexico.
Okay, so...
It's America, right?
Yeah, which I think is... Sorry, wait, what?
It's all America. The continent of America.
Okay, sure. I was like... Babes, where do you think Mexico is?
It's Central America.
No, it's North America.
Oh, well, there you go then.
Yeah, okay. This works as a sort of, you get creatures or stuff. And see, part of why I cut this off is I was like, I think at a certain point, like, we do have an idea of how this game finishes. I think a lot of what would make it good would be... both in how you play stuff, like, I think Either we need really good character creation stuff, or we need a lot of rain for people to, like, just make their characters whoever they are.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, it's fun to be doing actions which are about, like, interacting with ghosts and stuff, but, like, I guess the fact that this is always just, like, here's your day job thing gives it an interesting dimension. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did you ever watch Big Top Burger?
I did. That was fun. It's like...
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just that you are just a guy doing a ghost tour, and there's also ghosts doing ghost tours, but don't worry about it. And it's like, you've got to try and sabotage them so that they're not killing people on their ghost tours. Hi guys, the episode did cut short here during our recording. There was a gap of a few minutes here, but I'm just going to cut back into where the audio resumed. Thanks, guys. Yeah, it's crazy to me that you do, like, photo shoots and stuff. I'm just like, here is a prompt, Mr. Artist. I will give you £300-400. Please draw this. Oh, you cut off there. I was saying it's crazy that you do, like, photo shoots and stuff for your games, because it's like, I just throw several £100 at an artist and be like, please draw good art, please. Please draw me a mouse.
Yeah, well, do you know what I didn't do for this photo shoot? Spend more than 10 quid. Actually 30 if you count travelling down to where I shot it. But, like, it was very cheap to do. The question here for me that I had is interesting. It's like, this was really cheap. This has made this game very affordable, but also looking quite unique, I think. Like, this isn't just like when I've grabbed stuff off Unsplash. I think it does actually have a bigger, more strong visual identity. And I'm all about figuring out how to keep doing visual stuff for games and getting, like, nice art without
spending exorbitant amounts of money.
Spent money. Because I don't have money.
Understandable.
In lots of senses. But this was making me wonder, like, okay, if I tried to do something like this again for a different game, what can I actually do photo shoots of? Because I was like, okay, yeah, a cool photo shoot of wrestling moves in a car park. Very easy. But I don't know, I think it's an interesting thing where, like, oh yeah, restricting what kind of game I'd be looking at making by what kind of art could fit.
Yeah, I mean, like, you did a lot of stuff with Psycho Dungeon where it was, like, photo manipulations of, like, a shark head on a person or whatever the fuck. But,
yeah,
like, you do really good photo manips, so I guess work with that.
Yeah, I can always do those things, like, even when it's not me taking the photos. Like, Out of the Fold, I think, Out of the Fold and Infinite Dance will have a kind of similar visual style, which is a lot of, like, bright exposed colours, like, gradient map stuff, glowing sometimes, like, weird perspectives, or stuff photoshopped. Then, like, Psycho Dungeon has a really strong style as well, which is all about mashing things up in a sort of overexposed, over-realised way. But I was thinking about, like, yeah, if I was doing more, like, pure photo shoots, where, like, the editing I've done is just colour correction, I'll probably add some funky backgrounds at certain points in the book itself.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, what things can I take photos of that could be games? Because throwing it out there, like, weird monsters are out at this point. If I was, mostly excluding photo manipulation, just as a thought experiment. But, like, clubbing, very in, suddenly. Like, if I was doing, like, sequels to the Infinite Dance Floor stuff, that's, like, a big thing there. And also then you could get a lot of cool nightclub outfits of people.
I like the idea that all of the character, like, Paragon, like, pictures for the tour guides game are actual tour guides from, like, London walks. You, like, ask, hey, can I take your picture and use it in this thing? I'll give you, like, 20 quid.
Yeah, I do think it opens up an interesting thing if I was insisting on what can I take photos of, because it locks me to the present. And I work in the present, I think, more than a lot of RPG people anyway. But, like, it does lock me to the present.
Well, no, I mean, like, you could take pictures of, like, LARPers and stuff.
That's also true.
There's always
if I got more into prop work.
There's always those guys outside of UKGE that you could take pictures of. Renaissance fairs and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
I had a last idea, actually.
Go on, then.
Just thinking, because that's interesting, but also it tied into then another idea I had, which Maz from RRD actually gave me at Norwich Games Con. Because we were talking about bathrooms at the convention and how they, like, turned one of the gendered bathrooms into a gendy nooch.
A gendy nooch? Is that a special sandwich I can get somewhere?
That's what Laurie will always call gender neutral bathrooms. Like, oh, if they got a gendy nooch here. But I was like, oh, I didn't actually see the gendy nooch. And that went then to a weird thing where I was like, wait. Oh man, I didn't pee the entire time I was at the convention. I said to people, they were like, did you drink enough water? And I was like, probably not.
I'm scared of where this idea is going.
No, it is fine. It is fine. It came from a respectable, upstanding member of the RPG industry. But we were riffing about toilets a lot and which toilets are weird and where you end up and stuff. I think making comparisons between different gendered scene varieties. And I made a joke about maybe I should do a sequel to The Infinite Dance Floor where it's all about nightclub toilets. And then Maz came up with a suggestion of like, oh, have you seen like Mouse Ridder's The Estate, where it's like a box set and every adventure's about like a sort of different like location in an individual estate. And the suggestion there was like a box set of small games which are all nominally sort of a pub crawl in different things, almost like a sort of small town.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, this shitty pub, this weird nightclub. I was like, oh yeah, I guess in this case it's sequelized The Infinite Dance Floor
into an entire night
just a lot
out.
of other like sort of other weird magical realist like night out locations. Do that as a box set. So my question for you here is, what do you do? Because I think like bathrooms is probably fun.
Well, you get pre-drinks.
Pubs is weird. Ooh, a pre-drink game.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is not a mini-game collection. These are full games, but you could mimic one night out with it.
Yeah, I think your pre-drinks could be your session 0 for the whole box set.
That could actually be fun. Yeah, like a themed session 0.
Yeah. Which is where like you create your characters.
Infinite Dance Floor.
Yeah, you got your Infinite Dance Floor. That just goes straight in.
Yeah, I could remaster it in different ways, but yeah.
You get the women's bathroom, a flirting simulator. The men's bathroom, a fighting simulator.
What do you get up to in the women's bathroom? If it's a flirting simulator, tell me more.
I mean, I've not been on a night out in about 7 years, but my remembrance of it was girls giving you compliments, and then you find them on the dance floor 2 minutes later and are snogging.
Chloe, you machine, you dog!
I think there is certainly the pub where it's like you're kind of getting warmed up before you're going to like the proper clubs.
Yeah. I think there's something takeaway.
So, yeah, I was going to say there's something on the way home. It's like you're drunk and stumbling home. Like, do you stop for the kebab? Do you stop for the cheesy chips? Do these give you the energy that you need? I think it's some sort of like point. It's like what do you call Transgender Deathmatch Legend and
point crawl Transgender Deathmatch Legend is nominally a hex crawl.
Yeah, it's a hex crawl.
It doesn't use the hexes.
Where you don't really choose which hexes you go to because you're just kind of stumbling your way home. It's like your goal is to get from one side of the crawl to the other, but it's like, oh, we're at a kebab shop now. I don't remember how I got here, but okay.
You could do some hex flower stuff. I'm thinking of other nights out I've gone on. And that's an interesting because I feel like this thought I'm about to say so locks it to certain kinds of locations. Because I was going to say, man, so much of my memory of night outs are often like being on trains or tubes. But I'm like, but that's really... That makes sense for London, and that makes sense for where I lived in Essex. But I'm aware that, like, oh, that's really not, like, an even specific to the UK semi-universal experience.
Yeah, it's like the tubes stopped working
public transport
in Newcastle at, like, 11, 12-ish. Then they reopen at 4.
Yeah, I mean,
so...
that would be the way you're going out. You're going out on the train and you're figuring out your way home later. But that in itself could be a part of it. Yeah, I think this would be one where it would need the game as a whole would need to be kind of like very consciously, or the box as a whole would need to be very sort of British inverted commas. In that, like, I think it would just need a lot of specifics of like shit nights out, because that's why Infinite Dance Floor, if I pitch it to people, sells really well. I just need to be able to clock that someone has gone out clubbing before, and then I'm like, hey there,
Hey.
lads. Ever been on a night out? It would have been really good if you left 20 minutes before you did, because you stayed a little longer. It went so awful. And if I get a reaction of like, yeah, I'm like, then do I have a game for you? It's like, I'm just clocking lads. I have the games for the lads and the games for the facts.
Thank you for listening to Game Soup.